Hi, I'm Tim Weaver from CVG. This is part of our E3 Speculatron. We're going to be talking Nintendo now with Matthew Castle from Nintendo Gamer Magazine.
Hello.
Hello, Matt. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
Good, good. So we've already been over PlayStation, we've been over Xbox, and now we're going to talk about Nintendo, as I said.
The main event, as I like to call it.
The main event. And it probably is this year. I mean, for the first time in a few years now, Nintendo have probably got the most exciting conference.
Well, they've definitely got new hardware there, which other people obviously can't say the same, or might not be able to say the same.
So we know that Nintendo have been asking third parties not to talk about Wii U at all because you found it difficult to get anything out of third parties. But I mean, what do we know about the Wii U coming into the show? What do we expect them to show?
This is basically they treated last year's E3 as a kind of a sort of like a proof of concept. Sort of here's the idea of what we're doing. So this year is actually what they're calling like its proper kind of coming out party in terms of like this is you'll probably might even get like a release date and price, and we're talking about that kind of sort of precision of
release date of October. Do you think
late October? This is one of the big rumours. Is everyone thinks it's going to be October the 28th to time with Assassin's Creed 3. They think it's going to be a big third party because that is confirmed for Wii U. So people think it might be tied into a big third party release. I personally wonder if it might be late November, mid-November, and be tied into Call of Duty Black Ops 2.
Interesting.
I personally think Nintendo will try and hijack a big third party release by having a kind of sexy Wii U version.
Okay.
But that's my thought on it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, that's interesting because they are. Already we've heard of, we know that Arkham City's come in, Assassin's 3's come in, Aliens, Tekken, Metro, Darksiders,
which is a Ninja Gaiden, a new version of Ninja Gaiden 3 as well.
New version of Ninja Gaiden. So it's already got some pretty big names attached to it.
Yeah, it has. It's got a lot of... a lot of names, and some people would say they're the kind of games which are coming at the tail end of, the 360 and PS3, and they're just sort of almost like, not hand-me-down, sort of hand-me-acrosses, if you will. But obviously a big part of it is seeing how the older games have changed to bring in new controls. It's been suggested that Batman Arkham City is going to have quite radical control, stuff for the Wii U tablet, and... that series is so precious to Rocksteady and Warner Brothers. I can't see them just bunging out a cheap port. I think it's going to be one. They like to show off a bit. Yeah. So I'm quite excited about that. Ninja Gaiden as well, which had a bit of a hard ride on 360 and PS3, but they're actually talking about bringing a complete sort of stylus-based control scheme for it. Sort of drawing the cuts on the screen. So who knows what's going to go on with that? That's going to be some kind of crazy different thing. So yeah, you're going to have old games in interesting new forms, and you're going to have new games. Hopefully in their best form, based on that little extra.
So what's our understanding about you mentioned it there, our understanding of how powerful it is in comparison to 360?
Right now, to say, no... There's an awful lot of stories going around about the specs leaking. Literally every site on the internet has a different spec story coming out of it. I don't believe any of them. Nintendo are so secretive. It's really hard to overstate how good they are at keeping secrets. Even their local teams around the world don't know until the day before the conference. They get brought in and shown. Iwata basically comes out and says, here's what's going to happen at the show this year. Yeah. So, the idea that, someone's going to have got it right because there's so many rumors out there. I personally, I'm very keen on the sort of 1.5, the 1.5, the mid-generation kind of specs.
Dreamcasty kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Something that, Aliens Colonial Marines team, Gearbox, have come out already and said it's definitely got more RAM than the 360 and PS3, and it's enabling them to make the best-looking version of that game. Right. Some of the Darksiders guys went on record and said it would be closer to what they were doing with the PC, just in terms of higher textures, higher resolutions and things, so that they could work with. Then some other people have said, well, I'm a bit disappointed by the specs, but then these are people who could be working with whatever Microsoft and Sony are working on, which is going to be considerably higher. So this is, we're calling it the kind of the last shot in this console war, as opposed to the first shot in the next console war. If that makes any
interesting.
Sense. Not that that's a bad thing. I think that's.
So I guess a lot of the success or otherwise of Wii U will be dependent on how this control system works and
what Nintendo bring on it, because you got to, Nintendo software makes Nintendo hardware. It's you primarily buy a Nintendo machine because it's the only place you can play Nintendo games. It's always been the way, this generation particularly. Their work has been so far beyond what anyone else has done on Wii that it's kind of crazy the difference, but and hopefully that gap will be closed. And the controllers, it's a fascinating thing. I played a lot of it last year at the show, and I absolutely loved it. It is a thing you have to get in your hands to understand. Just the feel of it, because it looks weird and alien, and it looks like this. I'm not quite a pad, I'm not quite a tablet, but actually it's very comfortable, and it just makes sense, particularly in the demos they showed us last year. You moving it around to look through the screen as a little virtual window is very, very cool. And also the potential for local multiplayer, where you have one character who can see some things the others can't. It just works, but in a way that trailers don't necessarily convey. That's going to be the hard thing this year, is showing the magic.
And that's certainly what they'll do at their conference. We've talked about the third-party stuff. I imagine they'll wheel out a video that shows all these games kind of, in action.
I think there's going to be some surprises there as well. It's been...
Any ideas what?
Well...
If you had to take an informed
guess, I'd say any new game coming to 360 and PS3, which is out October, November later, has a pretty good chance of appearing. There's been a lot of... We've been talking to a lot of people who are UK PRs who are like, we don't know what we're bringing to the show. We literally have no idea what our Japanese or American outlets are making for Wii U. We don't know if they're making anything. So I think you can probably expect some stuff from EA. I think there might be a Need for Speed. Potentially. Coming, a new Need for Speed, which I wouldn't be surprised.
Which we imagine will probably be developed by Criterion.
Which would be cool. There are things like your games which are a little further afield, like BioShock, maybe.
Now I was going to ask you about this. Let's just stay on BioShock for a minute. One of the things that we're hearing in CVG is that the BioShock delay might partially be down to Wii U. What do you make of that?
It's an interesting idea. Last year, Ken Levine was in the Wii U video when they had 5 developers, and it was really odd because the other 4 developers were all working for it, and then you had Ken Levine going, I can't wait to play this in my bed or something like that, and that's my Ken Levine impression, by the way.
Excellent.
And then he said, oh well, no, we can't. We're not announcing anything. We're not making Infinite for it. That definitely could happen. I personally haven't heard anything along those lines, but then again, it is this crazy secrecy. There's been a couple of slips recently. There's a very similar thing happening with Aliens Colonial Marines, which even though we know is coming to Wii U, some people actually wonder if it's actually because there's some kind of Wii U exclusivity with it.
Right, okay.
Because it was originally scheduled for
interesting.
October, November. Now it's slipped into February, and all of a sudden we have Gearbox coming out in a lot of interviews saying, Wii U's the best version, and I'm really pleased about the Wii U version, which you just wouldn't say when you're trying to promote a multi-format game.
Right, interesting. So you think Aliens might be...
It could be.
Right.
It sounds mean. A little part of me would hope Nintendo, if they had managed to kind of work a third party to giving them some kind of exclusivity, it would be something a little sexier than Aliens Colonial Marines. I'm sure it'll be a great game. What we've seen looks cool, but it's not quite it's not like a GTA. No. I'm not saying that.
And so we know all those third parties, they're going to wheel them out at the show. They're going to probably, almost certainly, in fact, announce a few third-party system exclusives, or maybe timed exclusives.
Timed exclusives, I wouldn't be surprised.
But what about that first-party stuff? What do we think? What's our guess? We know Mario. There's going to be Mario.
Yeah, there's a 2D Mario. It will be what they showed last year, that new Super Mario Brothers Me, because...
Do you think that's the only Mario action we're going to get?
I think that's the only Mario we're going to see at launch. I think if we're really lucky, we might get a glimpse of a 3D Mario, just to convey the power of the machine, mainly because the Galaxy team, the people who make the 3D Mario, they're called EAD Tokyo. They've been out of action for not out of action, they've been making games, but their actual... this is really nerdy, by the way.
Right.
Their actual kind of core tech guys, the guys who make their engines, have actually vanished from credits of games in the last couple of years. I haven't actually seen them working on anything. They've got to be working on something.
Yeah.
I imagine it's their the kind of engine behind their next 3D lot. That's my sort of a personal observation. There'll be a 2D Mario at launch, I think. They might show. I think they'll talk a little bit about what they're planning to do with Smash Brothers. I don't think they're going to show it because he's just been making Kid Icarus.
He's only just come off
recently.
Icarus, yeah,
absolutely. There's the Pikmin 3, which Miyamoto's promised will be at E3, which could be a launch game. It's a bit niche, I think, for a launch game, but maybe that's the point. It's like saying, here, we remember you, kind of hardcore Nintendo man.
Here's Aliens and Assassins and Black Ops, and here's Pikmin 3.
Because here's some little guys in the garden sort of doodling about. There will be Wii Sports, Wii Play, Wii Fit, their next versions. That just makes sense, and that is going to be a thing that happens. I don't think we'll be getting like a Mario Kart or anything like that. And that's the sad thing, is that we're just ticking off franchises, going whether we think X franchise will or won't. A part of me goes, I hope they're going to bring something completely new. And if they did, I'd imagine it would be on the heads of Retro Studios, who make Metroid Prime. They've been, if you follow the kind of the recruitment sort of rumours, they've been employing a lot of people with 360 PS3 experience in the last couple of years. People from Naughty Dog, people from Gearbox, all these sort of people with sort of HD experience. They're working on something. No one knows what. It might be more Metroid Prime.
Is it? Yeah, I was going to say, is it more Metroid?
The thing is, Metroid Prime doesn't actually do particularly well for Nintendo. It's not like a huge seller. It's quite niche for something. To invest everything in. There's this mad rumour going around online at the moment that they're making a Metroid Star Fox crossover.
Right.
Like a mad hybrid, as in literally Samus is flying through space and then crashes into Fox McCloud, and then they go on an adventure together.
Staroid, if you like.
Staroid, or Staroid.
Met Fox.
Which is cool. So there's this mad Staroid thing going around. I don't really buy into that. It came from the same guy who said that Rocksteady were making the Turtles game, which most people think is kind of like a bit of a dubious rumour. Zelda, again, it would be in like the 3D Mario capacity. It would be like showing what it
because
can
they
do.
showed this kind of like footage of him last year.
Yeah,
sort of mocked up
and
footage.
they've been very, very clear to say that was just a tech demo. That isn't where they're taking it.
But it's an interesting idea about how it might look.
Yeah, it's definitely how it might look. Zelda will be their graphical showcase, and he's even Iwata said as much. He said the next generation won't just be about graphics for us, but when we have to bring the graphics, and we have to, for like Zelda, for example, we will. And that's the other interesting thing, is that a few months ago in an interview, Miyamoto said, if there was, one franchise he would trust Retro with, it is Zelda. He said, maybe there's something to be going there, and Miyamoto is famous for sort of giving the game away accidentally. So who would, that would be crazy. I'd love that. A Retro developed Zelda, man alive, sign me up.
Yeah. So just before we leave that Wii U and talk about 3DS, I'll just check another little rumour your way.
Please do.
What about the rumour that Square Enix have signed up a new Unreal Engine 3 deal? Okay, you might not have heard this rumour, but they've signed up a new Unreal Engine 3 deal, and a part of that deal allows them to develop for Wii U. Have you heard anything about that?
I must admit, I have not heard anything about that.
But it's interesting that it implies, if that is true, it implies that Nintendo are going after or courting third parties maybe a touch better than they have done in the past, because they have. Was it fair to say they've been notoriously bad at courting third parties?
I think it's fair to say they've been notoriously awful at it. No, and this is always the thing. It's kind of like they make great games for their own machines, but don't really understand the needs of other people. They have said, and they've always said, that they need to improve it, but specifically this last year, the one reoccurring line Iwata has had when he's been talking to these investors when their shares are plummeting, he goes, Nintendo knows it is a smallish company these days, and it has to look outwards, and it has to trust third parties with our own franchises as well. And that's the really interesting thing. What if they're actually, they don't have the manpower to do their Zeldas, their Marios, their F-Zeros or whatever in-house, and they're going to turn to people with a bit of outside experience, your Segas and Capcoms, probably your Japanese companies, just because they've got better ties. But I'm working with Square Enix to make perfect sense, and Square Enix have so many games on 3DS. They have been the primary third-party supporter of it. them and Ubisoft.
Well, see, that's interesting because what I actually when I sort of turned that idea about Square over in my head, I was thinking more along the Tomb Raider lines, right. Something that was...
Yeah, and they have come out and said we're not making Tomb Raider for Wii U. They've actually been quite adamant about it. It does fit the time frame for Wii U.
Because it's like February, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Matt, I'd love it to be on there, and it'd be great. And Nintendo are definitely going after. They're courting. It's whether or not it's an attractive enough prospect. It's a young platform, and they do have unfortunately, thanks to Wii, they've now got a reputation as being a platform where third-party core games
go to die.
Yeah, go to die and don't do particularly well. But those have been third-party core games that have been rubbish ports of like PS2 games. They haven't been core games. Give people Tomb Raider and promise them the best version of it on Wii U. People will get that, that's what people want. You know.
Okay, so let's talk about 3DS. What does the show hold for that bad boy?
The 3DS has been massively overshadowed by all this Wii U chatter. I think it's going to have a not particularly incredible, whoa, mind-blowing, this 3DS is actually the secret star of the show. I think it's going to have some very reliable old favourites. We're going to be seeing a lot more of Animal Crossing, which is lined up as their big Christmas 3DS game. We'll be seeing New Super Mario Bros. 2, which is out in August or something. So we're going to be seeing a lot of that, I hope. That to me feels a little bit of a, let's have some money. Let's just make this money from New Super Mario Bros. 2. Probably Professor Kawashima's new brain training game. Yeah. A little mention of it, because obviously it's not really the time or the place. Paper Mario, hopefully, because that was... they've shown trailers of it for the last couple of years, but not actually shown the game, and it's about time. And hopefully Luigi's Mansion 2, which was due for early 2012 and has vanished completely. I mean, there was actually some crazy rumours going around that it was going to become like a Wii U 3DS crossover, right? Which I don't really buy, because it looked pretty designed for 3DS when I played it last year. My big concern is third-party stuff. We've heard very little rumblings, apart from there's a couple of things we do know about that we can't necessarily talk about at the moment, because we are NDA'd up to the eyeballs. But we've seen one incredibly promising 3DS game. We've played it in action. It's related to a current generation game console. It's a very surprise. Well, it's not surprising for a Nintendo handheld, but it is it's a surprisingly full-on adaptation for 3DS, and people will know instantly when they see it. It's going to be one of the big games of the show, talking about it ambiguously, which is really irritating. I hate it when people do it online, but I wish I could say what it was. But
you probably get Iwata storm in the room.
Iwata and some other people. But it's going to be big. It's going to be big.
So finally, to wrap up, is your gut feeling that this is going to be a real big one for Nintendo? Really, it's the onus is on them to get this absolute, because this is almost their one opportunity where they can they've got a leg up on the competition. They've got to make the most of it, haven't they?
They've got. We're talking about 4 months until their machine's out. This is it. This is how they do business these days. They come in 6 months before and go, boom, here is everything. This will be the final machine, the final thing. It's been hell for us as a Nintendo magazine for this last year, because basically after last E3, they just hit everyone with the scariest NDA. Do not talk about Wii U. But then as we get closer to E3, we're getting more agitated with that. But at the same time, you're like, it's all going to be there. It's all going to happen. Uncork it. It's just explosion of information. That's really exciting. Not many shows not many years can promise that. You are guaranteed a great Nintendo show. I just hope they bring it. It's basically theirs to lose, if it makes any sense.
All right. Well, thanks, Matt. We look forward to finding out how much of your mad predictions come true.
My bad predictions.
Thanks very much.
No worries.